The West is undergoing a period of significant change. The EU is facing growing divisions in the wake of the Brexit vote last June, which has exposed intensifying nationalist sentiments on the continent. In the meantime, the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States in November has brought with it the potential for significant change in US foreign policy. One such change relates to Russia. The new US administration is seeking to have a less antagonistic relationship with Russia as it tries to focus more on the home front. This includes the possibility of the US lifting or easing sanctions against Moscow. The country with perhaps the most reason to be concerned about such changes is Ukraine. Since the Euromaidan uprising in 2014, Ukraine has relied on backing from both Europe and the US in its standoff with Russia over Crimea and eastern Ukraine. Kiev now stands the prospect of potentially losing this backing, as Trump has said he would like to work more closely with Russia in areas like Syria, and even suggested US sanctions against Russia could be traded for cooperation in other areas like nuclear arms reduction. It is thus likely no coincidence that fighting has escalated in eastern Ukraine shortly after Trump's inauguration. Just after Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin held their first phone call on January 28th, fighting intensified and casualties have mounted near the city of Avdiivka, a strategic coke-producing town near the line of contact between Ukrainian security forces and Russian-backed separatists. Fighting in the area continues to this day, as both Kiev and Moscow have an incentive to raise the new US administration's attention in regard to the conflict. They have done so by creating enough instability in order to make it harder to pretend like the conflict is frozen and thus more negotiable. However, Russia currently has the upper hand at this time, as Moscow has worked to get involved in hotspots like Syria precisely to get the US to the negotiating table on more strategic issues like Ukraine. And though EU leader Germany is still pressuring Russia to do more on its end to implement the Minsk protocols, the European bloc is seeing growing divisions over the sanctions issue, just as key elections on the continent, including France, Germany, and possibly Italy, loom this year. This leaves Ukraine in a precarious position in regards to its Western backing, which could see further erosion as the year wears on. Kiev will try to swing perceptions of the conflict in eastern Ukraine against Russia, using flare-ups in the violence to persuade the United States to stand firm on sanctions. These efforts may or may not keep the Trump administration from reaching an understanding with the Kremlin, but they promise to make the situation in eastern Ukraine more volatile.